and welcome to Bad Book Club, where I, Jade, a silly goose with an English degree, read classic and popular literature so you don't have to. Hello, Bad Book Club friends, and welcome back to Bad Book Club with Jade, your favorite person who reads books for you. Anyway, I have a weird episode for you today because I was a bad kid and I didn't finish reading The Secret Life of Bees, which I was supposed to read this week, and I was supposed to tell you all about it. But I don't know, I just had a bit of a weird week, and it just got hard for me to read. And for some reason, it just didn't grip me. I think that it's a great book. The writing's excellent. I don't know why. It didn't grip me. I wasn't interested in reading it. And sometimes that's okay. You know, this is a podcast about reading. Reading is just that way sometimes. Sometimes a book is just not going to grip you the way it's supposed to. Sometimes you run out of time. That's just the way life is. And that's just the way reading goes. I think that when you're reading books, sometimes people can get a little too in your face if you did like something or if you didn't like something. And I like to remember that books are all about opinions and what you think and what you thought. And so it's just good to know that, you know, I'm human. I just couldn't, it didn't grip me. I just wasn't interested. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was just because I was on the heels of Sing Unburied Sing, and it's very similar in their treatment of the subjects. And I wasn't vibing with it. It was maybe a little too sad for me this week. I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling it. And I wasn't going to force myself to read something that I wasn't feeling. I just wasn't going to do it. Reading is supposed to be fun. I'm not going to force myself to read something. So I have a weird episode for you because instead of that, I thought maybe we could just talk about something a little different than what we usually talk about. It's still coming of age, but I remembered this old short story that I used to really like, that I still like, called Girl by Kincaid, and it's really short, and I just thought we could analyze it together and talk about it just a little bit and just give you a short episode this week because Secret Life of Bees just didn't do it for me. So I just thought we could do that. If that's okay with you, if y'all are okay with that. I appreciate you being nice to me. If you want, I can tell you some reasons why I wasn't able to finish The Secret Life of Bees. Just some funny things happened to me this week. 2 funny things I feel like happened to me. So last week, I had to take my rat to the vet because he stopped eating. I have rats, by the way. I have 4 rats. I have a cat and I have a fish. I basically have a zoo. I definitely got the fish after I read Sing Unburied Sing, and he talked about the betta fish, and I was like, well, now I want a betta fish. And then I was at the pet store because of this story, and I bought a fish. But basically, the pet store is right next to my vet that I take my rats to. And I had to take my rat, Sunny, to the vet because he stopped eating. And I took him there, and I was so nervous they were going to tell me that he has, pneumonia. Rats have delicate lungs, and it's a long story, but sometimes they get pneumonia, and they'll die. And I was so worried he was going to have, a cold, and he was going to be sick, and he's, going to die. She was going to come out and be like, oh, he's dead. We had to put him down. And I'd be like, no, my heart. But anyway, she came out, and she told me that his teeth were too long, that he just hadn't been filing them down. Fun facts about rats, their teeth keep growing and they have to file them down. And if they don't, they can get out of control. And this is what happened to my rat, Sunny. He did not file his teeth down and they got too long and he couldn't eat. And I was like, that is the dumbest reason to not eat something. I just was so worried it was going to be something super serious. So they had to put my rat under anesthesia and file down his teeth. And then now I have to give him pain meds every 12 hours so that he can eat. So that's what I've been doing. Rats don't like it when you stick syringes in their mouths. It's not their favorite thing. It's been such a fun week with my rat, Sunny. If you want to see a picture of Sunny, I'll post one of him on the Bad Book Club Instagram so you know what I'm talking about. The other funny thing that happened to me this week was I went home to visit my parents in Austin, Texas, and I'm from Dallas. It's about a 3-hour drive. And on the way home, I did not realize I have a new car, and it's different than my old car, and I just had a blonde moment, and I didn't realize I was low on gas, and I ran out about a quarter mile away from a gas station on the feeder road. And I had to wait for 2 hours for AAA to come help me because I couldn't push it or do anything myself. And so it was such a time. So it took me like an extra 3 hours to get home that day. And so it's been kind of a weird week for me, but it's been a little funny too, so it's okay. But I thought we would just talk about this short story a little bit today, and that way you still get something fun, and you still get something you can listen to. And for anyone out there who's wondering, like Bad Book Club's been so fun, and maybe you're like, oh, I want to read more, but I don't have time. I love short stories. Short stories are such a cool way to get literature. When I was in college, for a while, I would just read a short story a day. It was really fun. They're like 20 pages. They're not like that intensive, and it's cool. You get to read a cool story. And I feel like short stories are written so beautifully because since they're short, you can really spend so much time on like how the sentences are formed. So in a way, I feel like sometimes the language in short stories are more beautiful than novels because they're just so long, If you worked on every single sentence in a novel, it would take like 16 years to be finished with it. So I don't know. I think sometimes short stories give you like a dose of like cool language. And I like that. So I'll recommend some of my two favorite little short story books. I have more, but my two favorites are still the ones that were recommended to me in a fiction class I once took because I feel like they have all the good ones. They have all my favorites in them. But anyway, this one is called Girl by Kincaid. What's her first name? Let's check together. What do you think? I think we should check. Jamaica Kincaid. Sorry, I read that as Hamika for a second, and I knew that was wrong. So Jamaica Kincaid. It's a very short story, very, very short. It's almost a poem, but it's a short story, and it's a coming of age story. And I thought we could do some analysis together, and it'll maybe give you a teeny bit of insight on the way I analyze things, and you can feel like in English literature today too. So if you don't mind that, and you're okay with this episode and me being a silly goose, I appreciate you being nice with me because life is just life, that's just the way it goes. But thanks so much, and let's get started. I'm just excited. Let's go. Since this short story is so short, I'm just going to read it to you. It is one sentence. Isn't that fun? It's one sentence. So I'm going to read it to you. Are you okay? Are you ready? Let's go. Wash the white clothes on Monday and put them on the stone heap. Wash the color clothes on Tuesday and put them on the clothesline to dry. Don't walk barehead in the hot sun. Cook pumpkin fritters in very hot sweet oil. Soak your little clothes right after you take them off. When buying cotton to make yourself a nice blouse, be sure that it doesn't have gum on it because that way it won't hold up well after a wash. Soak saltfish overnight before you cook it. Is it true that you sing Benna in Sunday school? Always eat your food in such a way that it won't turn someone else's stomach. On Sunday, try to walk like a lady and not like the slut you are so bent on becoming. Don't sing Benna in Sunday school. You mustn't speak to wharf rat boys, not even to give directions. Don't eat fruits on the street. Flies will follow you. But I don't sing Benna on Sundays at all, and never in Sunday school. This is how to sew on a button. This is how to make a buttonhole for the button you have just sewed on. This is how to hem a dress when you see the hem coming down, and so to prevent yourself from looking like the slut I know you are so bent on becoming. This is how you iron your father's khaki shirt so it doesn't have a crease. This is how you iron your father's khaki pants so that they don't have a crease. This is how you grow okra far from the house because okra tree harbors red ants. When you are growing dasheen, make sure it gets plenty of water or else it makes your throat itch when you are eating it. This is how you sweep a corner. This is how you sweep a whole house. This is how you sweep a yard. This is how you smile to someone you don't like very much. This is how you smile to someone you don't like at all. This is how you smile to someone you like completely. This is how you set a table for tea. This is how you set a table for dinner. This is how you set a table for dinner with an important guest. This is how you set a table for lunch. This is how you set a table for breakfast. This is how to behave in the presence of men who don't know you very well. And this way they won't recognize immediately the slut I have warned you against becoming. Be sure to wash every day, even if it is with your own spit. Don't squat down to play marbles. You are not a boy, you know. Don't pick people's flowers. You might catch something. Don't throw stones at blackbirds because it might not be a blackbird at all. This is how to make a bread pudding. This is how to make ducona. This is how to make pepper pot. This is how to make a good medicine for a cold. This is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child before it becomes a child. This is how to catch a fish. This is how to throw back a fish you don't like. And that way something bad won't fall on you. This is how to bully a man. This is how a man bullies you. This is how to love a man. And if this doesn't work, there are other ways. And if they don't work, don't feel too bad about giving up. This is how to spit up in the air if you feel like it. And this is how to move quick so that it doesn't fall on you. This is how to make ends meet. Always squeeze bread to make sure it's fresh. But what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? You mean to say that after all, you are really going to be the kind of woman who the baker won't let near the bread? Isn't that a crazy, cool short story? It popped in my head while I was thinking about what to talk about instead, and then I couldn't get it out of my head, so I thought we'd talk about it because it is so interesting to me and it's so cool that you can use language in this way. It is comprised of one sentence between each lesson that her mom teaches her. I'm assuming this is a mom to her child. There's a semicolon. So that's the only thing separating all these life lessons. And I think this is a coming of age story. Because through the language used, and I'm assuming that she's growing up while her mom's telling her these life lessons. A lot of this will be assumptions, but that's what English is anyway. So, I'm assuming that these were not said to her in just one afternoon. That would be insane because she's saying this is how. So this is like an explanation of she's showing her something. So she can't show her how to do all these tasks in one day. I'm sure that these life lessons were given to her daughter over course of her life, over her lifetime. And I think that this poem goes to show, this poem/short story, I think that at its heart, it is about the mother-daughter relationship, and I think it's about societal expectations of women. So I think it's really cool that you can do something like that in like a page. Isn't that cool? But basically, I would argue those two things, and I'll go to show my point here in a second. But I think it's so cool. It blows my mind. But anyway, I'm rambling. So coming of age, let's talk about that for a second. The coming of age of this is really interesting. I said that it's given over time, and I think the language reflects that. So at the beginning, she says, this is how you make a blouse. This is how you cook a fish. Like, she asks, do you sing Benna in Sunday school? Now, Jamaica Kincaid is from the Caribbean, and based on the language and the discussion of this poem, I'm assuming that this woman and her her daughter, also live in the Caribbean, probably in a poor place, based on the like making your own blouse, all that, and all that jazz. And like I said, the language gets older as it goes. So she said Sunday school at first, and then by the end of the short story, she's asking, like, if you love a man and if it doesn't work out, like, that's okay. Don't feel bad about, it not working out. And then she even tells her, this is how you make a medicine to get rid of a child. So I'm not assuming she told that to her 5-year-old daughter. I'm assuming she told it to her 16-year-old daughter. So this story is a coming of age story in one sentence, which is really cool. It is a mom giving her daughter life lessons over the course of her childhood. And it's also her mom kind of putting societal expectations on her daughter, because I'm sure that you noticed the only pattern in this short story, the only thing that happens several times, other than some small repetitions, are the fact that her mom is very worried and kind of cruel about her daughter being a slut. She says it several times. She says, yeah, so they won't know you're a slut. And it's very uncool. And even at the very end, the last line is about it. And the only 2 times that the daughter speaks, they're written in italics. The first one is, but I don't sing Benna on Sunday at all and never in Sunday school. And the second one is, but what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? So the daughter just jumps in to defend herself. And I think it's interesting, too, because she says slut several times, and it shows a lot about the daughter and what matters to the daughter based on what questions she voices and what she defends herself about. So it's almost like she's so used to her mom, saying that she's a slut that it just goes over her head. But the fact that she sings Benna in Sunday school, like, confuses her. She's like, what? No, I don't sing Benna in Sunday school. It's like a weird comment that she had to rebut, because that one was like different. It's interesting. It tells me that her mom has probably called her a slut more than once, that it's not something the daughter finds to be surprising anymore, or something she needs to defend herself with. Something important in analysis is a lot of patterns. That's basically all literature is. It's just what happens more than once. That's what themes are. It's what foreshadowing is. Everything important in literature is like, oh, did it happen more than one time? Well, it must be important. And this can be words, sentences, objects, styles, just stuff like that. So I think this is an interesting story because it's all repetition, and yet it's interrupted only twice by the daughter. And the only thing that's really repeated is that through her lifetime, her mom calls her slut several times. And from the mom, it's so weird. I feel like it encompasses like a mother-daughter relationship pretty fully for something only a page long, because the mom is critical of her daughter and she says, like, you're a slut, basically. But she also says nice things, like she teaches her how to smile at someone you don't like very much. I think that says a lot about women and societal expectation that women are nice to people they don't even like because they have to be. So she says, this is how you smile to someone you don't like very much, someone you don't like at all, and then someone you like completely. So there's 3 options and 2 of them are bad. She says, like, this is how you set a table. This is how you do, domestic chores. But there's also stuff like, I really like this stuff down here about this is how to bully a man. This is how a man bullies you. This is how to love a man. And if this doesn't work, there are other ways. And if they don't work, don't feel too bad about giving up. And so like that line, I think that line is actually really caring, which is strange because it comes right after she calls her daughter a slut. But she says like, hey, like this is how to be a good wife. But if it doesn't work out, like that's okay. And so that's like kind of a nice comment to make to your daughter. It's like, it's this almost like, it's a story. It's the story of a girl's life with her mother and presumably her father, although her mom's the one who teaches her life lessons. And it's about the daughter and about, society's expectations of women, what she must do every day, what's important to her family. It's about tradition. It's about the mother-daughter relationship and how complicated it is. Because like I said, you feel love in the paragraph from her mom and the way that her mom worries about her. And I think, but you also feel the daughter's confusion and you feel her lack of independence and the lack of control she has in her life, which is kind of sad. I think this tells you a lot about the daughter, and she only has 2 lines. It tells you a lot about the mom too, because she says like all these things about how like, you're not a boy, stop pretending you're a boy, don't squat, don't play marbles, hem your dress because you're a slut or whatever. But the mom says weird stuff all the time too that's not very feminine. So I don't know, this is probably something about tradition in society, because I bet this is something her mom was told. She says like, if you don't have like anything to wash yourself with, use your spit. And she says, like, this is how you spit in the air and then move away fast so it doesn't fall on you. It's interesting. I feel like her mom is a little tomboyish and it peeks through in a couple of lines. Yeah. And I know that she calls her daughter slut and she doesn't actually make any action on it until that line where she says, this is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child before it becomes a child. And I feel like that might be the roughest line in this, because I know that she calls her daughter a slut and that sucks. But like this line is something she taught to her daughter because she thought her daughter might need it. So that is sad to me, because I think that might be the roughest moment. It's something whenever someone you love calls you something terrible. It's something else when they express that they truly believe that you are that thing. So it's rough to be like, oh, you're a slut, like stop playing marbles with the boys. And another to be like, here, I think you need to know how to do this. And so that's a little sad, but it might be the roughest line in here for me. I really like the repetition. It's used really interestingly so it doesn't get boring, because I think if it was entirely this is, I think that it would get irritating. But I notice that doesn't happen till the end. It's almost like her sentences are getting shorter as it goes on, and I think that also represents the patience of the daughter. So like, have you ever Have you ever mocked someone? Like you're like, oh, this is, right? Like I think when you mock someone, you start off with like, this is, right? You know what I mean? Like at the beginning, she says, wash the dishes. She doesn't say, this is how you wash the dishes. But that's something you might say if you were like mocking someone. Like if I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like my parrot is so annoying. He's like, this is how you eat it. Like, like it's something that people do when they're mad because another person is correcting them, or like it's like the this is how phrase. I just feel like its connotations are more negative than just the regular wash your clothes this way that's said at the beginning of the story. I almost said book. It's not a book. But I think that's cool that it changes, because I think we're kind of in this short story is so interesting, and it's all crazy sort of speculation on my part, but I feel like it makes sense, and therefore I have a point. So anyway, basically, I feel like you can make the argument that this is coming from the girl's head, not from the mom. This is not the mom writing these things down. This is the girl hearing it throughout her life. And I think that because the things that she says are in italics, and habitually when something is in italics, you assume that the first person narrative is thinking, So like if I was writing a book and I was like, Sarah sat down, I wonder what coffee they'll have today. Sometimes I'll put that in italics because that's what Sarah's thinking. Like that's the main character. That's who we're following. So it interests me that the lines that are in italics are from the daughter, because it shows me that the daughter is probably the one who's doing the thinking, the remembering, the one that we're feeling this story come from. And so if over time this is all to say that over time, if her mom's advice starts to sound repetitive and annoying to the reader, I'm imagining that that's how it sounds to the daughter. At first, I think it's kind of long. The sentences are long. She says, always eat your food so it won't turn someone else's stomach. Don't sing Benna in Sunday school. Like, what's another one? Wash the color clothes on Tuesday and put them on the clothesline to dry. Like, it's a little bit more full sentences. And here at the end, this is how to make a pepper pot. This is how to make a good medicine for a cold. This is how to make a good medicine to throw away a child. So it gets faster in my head because the language moves faster. That's something cool that repetition does. If something is repeated, your brain, knowing what it means, your inner thoughts will move faster with the writing. So the fact that it's getting faster at the end here, the language is, that it's getting more repetitive and a little more annoying and it's shortened, shows me that the daughter who's experiencing this is probably feeling that way. Maybe she's feeling annoyed. Maybe she's like, oh, this is how you do this. This is how you do this in her head, right? Like she's like, oh, another life lesson. Great. And it's one of those things where I think it's interesting at the very end. She says, but what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? And the mom says, you mean to say that after all, you are really going to be the kind of woman who the baker won't let near the bread? I think that's a cool line to end on, because it's just an even slyer way to call her daughter a slut. But I also think it's interesting because she doesn't say the word slut. So is it possible that by the end of this tiny paragraph that I'm probably overanalyzing, and all of you are like, how is Jade going this deep on a paragraph? But she doesn't say the word slut though. And she said it every other time that she's meant it. Every other time that she suggested it, she's just said the word slut. This time she didn't. She just said, are you going to be the type of woman who the baker doesn't let come near the bread? Which is just going to say, she's just saying, are you going to be a slut? But she says it without saying the word, which, could mean a couple things. It could mean that her daughter is an adult now and she doesn't want to call her full-grown woman daughter a slut. Or it could mean that the mom is getting more sly, in her insults. It could mean that question at the end also shows growth. What if the baker won't let me feel the bread? I think that might show growth because in the first thought she had, it was defensive. It was, but I don't sing Benna in Sunday school, and I don't do that. And her mom just blew over it, didn't respond, didn't listen. So maybe this question was less of an honest question and more like a sarcastic, annoyed question. Like if someone's talking too much And you're like, oh, but what about this thing? And you're just like throwing things at them to see what they say. You know, like you're poking holes in their philosophy. So like, what if she got older and she starts to poke holes in the philosophy and the mom is like, well, obviously I need to step up my cruelty game. And she responded with something. And at the same time, I don't know, maybe she just wasn't comfortable using the word slut anymore if her daughter's older. So that's like a really long-winded way for me to tell you that I feel like this is a coming of age story. But I just think it's really cool. I also think that last sentence is cool because she says, always squeeze bread to make sure it's fresh, but what if the baker won't let me feel the bread? And I feel like those two words of feel and squeeze are really interesting because it's like weirdly sexual. I think that must have been on purpose. That has to have been on purpose. And it either started with the mom and then the daughter exacerbated it. And then the mom went, well, are you a slut? And she like took it from that small direction. It's like the author Kincaid is like putting this in my brain. And then, so when it eventually leads to the comment, you know, like, are you really going to be the kind of woman? It very clearly means in my head, are you going to be a slut? Because of those words that she used. So language is just cool. Am I right? Language is cool. Lastly, before I finish my TED Talk about this really tiny short story that is basically a novel, I wanted to talk about, there are a lot of things I really enjoy about this. I've already spoke to you a little bit about the structure of it, how it's semicolons. I've talked about the characterization of the mother and the daughter. So the daughter, as she grows older, I think is probably getting more sarcastic, more annoyed. The mom, I think, is starting to get more controlling, probably because the lessons start to add up, right? Like there are a lot of lessons there at the end. But there's still love there. Like there's obvious concern for her daughter, but she's concerned about many things, including her daughter being a slut, which I'm feeling probably is because the mom was called a slut once upon a time. I feel like what your parent says to you usually gets passed on to the next generation. So if her mom grew up with, you know, like playing marbles, like spitting in the air. Like I imagine her mom was like, are you a slut? Don't do that. And when she was growing up, she like, you know, didn't think about it. And now that she has a daughter, she's like, are you a slut? Don't do that. Right. Like, so maybe that's like a generational, traditional, like societal comment. I like the language and the word choice, you know, like by using the feel and the squeeze for the bread. It makes, you know, it puts images in the reader's head without them realizing it. I think it's cool that you can put this story in a setting without telling me about the setting. So like I already guessed this was probably a Caribbean neighborhood and it was probably a poorer neighborhood because of words like Benna. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's some sort of song because it's singing. And so like stuff like that, Benna, and the sewing of your own shirts, like washing things and like hanging them out to dry on stone heaps. Like it's probably a poorer neighborhood. So that's a way of setting the setting without actually telling me anything. So that's cool. I think the point of view is interesting because I already told you that I think it's from the daughter's point of view, but because we only get like, we don't actually, it's all of her mother's words, but it's from the, I think, impressions of the daughter because of the way that the mother's language is used and because of the way the italics were used, which I think was cool. What else? I've already talked about like narrative time, how I feel like this is happening over time as she gets older. And the pacing, how it gets faster because she starts to get, I think, annoyed and it starts to add up for the daughter. It's one of those things where I think for the daughter, as she grows up, the lessons start to feel incessant and they start to feel incessant for the reader. That's there. That's the same. And the beginning and ending show the differences. The beginning is, you know, like, here's how to wash clothes. And the ending is like a sarcastic comment from the mom. So things get more real between them. I think it shows their relationship over time. It's changed because I think the mom is almost crueler to the daughter, but I think the daughter is also equally cruel if she's like poking questions into like her mom's philosophy there at the end. I think that it says a lot about their ongoing relationship and how it's changed and how calling your daughter a slut probably for several years doesn't equal in a great mother-daughter relationship. That's just my guess. What do you mean? Like I said, I think the voice and the tone of the the phrases show a lot about what the daughter's feeling about it. And lastly, my very last thought about this thing is the title. So the title is called Girl. That's part of the reason why I feel this is a coming of age story, and why I feel like it's like kind of a critique and question about like societal expectations of women, because this is for a girl. It's like it doesn't give us her name. It doesn't give us anything about her except she's a girl. And we don't need to know anything about her, because I think it's so cool that the name is anonymous. It's not just to this girl, it's to every girl. Like this is just a girl in a generation, in a family, in a society. This is a girl's life. This is just it. Just a girl in this life. This is what she goes through. She goes through judgment from schools, families, friends, and her own mom. She goes through the learning of how to care for her household, how to do everything right, how many details there are in her life. Like she has to set a table like 6 different ways, you know? So it's just one of those things, all the societal expectations of women and girls especially are here. Like, you know, she says, don't be a slut, don't do all this. But then again, here's how to smile at someone you like. Here's how to love someone. Here's how to bully someone, you know, like, it's just that I feel like this is a really cool short story about a girl and her mother, but not just a single girl and her mother, about many girls and their mothers. And maybe not nowadays, maybe not for me in Dallas, Texas in 2020. But, you know, like, I don't know 6 different ways to set a table, but I feel like this sort of feeling of having people judge you and having to know things and having to know how to do things, how to take care of everything, how to take care of yourself, how to do everything correctly, how everything in her life is a test and how everything must be done perfectly. That is so interesting, and how your mother expects that from you. Like, my mom, I'm just kidding. But like, it's just one of those things where like in this relationship between this mother and this daughter, her mom puts a lot of pressure on her, and her mom doesn't listen to her, and she defends herself. Her mom doesn't hear it. It's just one of those things where I feel like the title makes this story almost rougher and more applicable, because by keeping it anonymous, like if it was named Angela, like I'd just be reading the story of Angela. By naming it Girl, I'm like, oh, this is just any girl's life. Like any girl's life could be this. Like it's just being a girl in society. So I think it's really interesting that she did that. I think it shows a lot too about possibly how the mom thinks of her. You know, like I know this is from the point of view of hopefully the daughter, but if it's maybe how her mom thinks of her, how her mom talks to her like she's a girl, not her daughter, like she's a girl. So it's not called daughter. It's not called mother. It's called girl. They're both girls. And so I just think it's interesting. There's a lot of thoughts I could have about it, a lot of conclusions, but I have many. And, you know, that's just the way it goes. And you probably do too. What do you think girl means? What does it mean to you when I tell you that this story is called Girl? It's just good practice sometimes to think about what things might say to you. That's all I've done here, and I've taken half a page and spoken to you for 30 minutes about it because I wanted to get more into the process of how I analyze things. I know when I talk about novels, it probably feels like I'm coming out of nowhere with them, but with a story like this, I felt like I could tell you exactly what I was thinking because it's only like 30 lines. I could point to a line and tell you exactly how I came to that conclusion. So I thought this could be a fun exercise for us. And I had a good time doing it. I love talking about short stories. It's fun to analyze a paragraph for 30 minutes. Often people don't let me do that. If I did this to my poor husband, he'd be like, that's really cool. And he'd be like trying to smile. But for half a page, I think he might be tired. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this weird little mini episode of mine. Thank you for bearing with me. For some reason, Secret Life of Bees just wasn't working for me, and I thought this would be fun. And the whole point of this podcast is to do fun things because that's what it's supposed to be, right? Anyway, next week we are supposed to be reading The Hate You Give. I promise I'll read that one. And as we get closer to Thanksgiving, after that one, we'll be reading The Giver. And for some reason, I feel like I'm missing a book. But if you want to check on it, you can go to our Instagram page at Bad Book Club Pod and see a big list of all the upcoming books we have for the rest of the season. And you can also go to our website. It's going to be linked below. And you could buy this book that I'm going to talk about. It's called The Scribner Anthology. That's where I got this short story. I'll link it below. And you could also buy some merchandise if you really want to and support the podcast. So thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Bad Book Club friends. Thanks for being awesome. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next week. And please stay amazing. Okay. I love you. Bye. Bye.